Good afternoon. Welcome to the Perky Collar Radio Show on WDRB Media. Today's guest is Connor Sam Brooks from the company called Brooks and Hyde. Connor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent, Connor. Thank you so much for joining us. And to give our viewers and our listeners a little background, I met Connor at the Chicago Collective a couple weeks ago, and I was very impressed with his line of belts and what else do you have? Wallets, all kinds of fun stuff. And today I wanted to have him come on the show and talk about what he's done, how he's built the brand, and kind of give you a little behind-the-scenes story of the company. So thank you for joining us, Connor.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So tell us, kind of my typical intro question is, what made you get into business? Why did you start Brooks and Hyde?
So this company kind of blossomed out of my senior thesis in college.
Okay.
I went to school at the University of Cincinnati and studied industrial design in the DAP program there. And I'd gotten this internship while I was in school at this company that basically designs and consults for various brands on the accessory business, and kind of fell in love with it and decided to come back for a second internship during my final year of school, and I got to go work at their sample making site. So basically the way the company works is they mass produce everything overseas from fake materials, but they do have a small manufacturing site that they have a sample maker who can make the products really quickly if they needed it to be done for a customer, or say a buckle change on a belt really quickly. So she does all of that stuff, and I got to work with her, and she taught me the entire trade of, handcrafted leather goods from start to finish, and I kind of fell in love with it and kind of had a passion for it, and came back to school and blew everyone away during my senior thesis with what I was making and building, and pretty much everyone was encouraging me to pursue it, saying, I would buy this and I would buy this and that. And my dad had started his own business when about 20 years ago, and they're still going extremely strong. So he's, kind of been my inspiration for, what hard work can do. And so I kind of, right when school ended and I had graduated, I decided to launch a company right out of college, and I've just been trying to grow it and scale it ever since.
Good for you. I mean, most people go to job fairs and trying to get hired by somebody. You said, nope, I'm doing the hiring, which is excellent. And what kind of business did your father have? Was it comparable as far as accessories?
It is not. He's is completely different. Nothing really, not in the same industry at all, but he's kind of been a really good mentor towards me.
Sure.
And had a lot of good advice to, the beginnings of what it takes to get it up and off the ground, and the hours you got to put in to make it successful.
Sure. Well, I think growing up in an entrepreneur household makes a big difference. And at some point, if you're getting married and so on and so forth, how your wife, in the future, what kind of household she grows up in, has a lot to do with the success of an entrepreneur as well. Because I think it has a lot to do with what you're used to, what you consider normal. If you grow up in a 9-to-5 household, both parents, your parents automatically assume you need to go get a job, go work for someone. And same for your, future. Are you married?
I'm not married.
Not married. Okay, I didn't think so, but just clarifying. But it's something you'll have to consider as well, is that whoever you decide to marry at some point, or if you decide to get married, what her upbringing was she in an entrepreneur household, was she in a 9-to-5 household, will affect a lot of your relationship, because she may or may not understand what you're going through. And I think it's the hardest part of being an entrepreneur is the ups and downs, and getting through the downs and getting through the ups and enjoying the ups, but keep fighting through the downs, because there's good things ahead. As you fail, you learn from the failures, and good things happen. Is there an example?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, I was just completely agree with that. I think, finding the right people that to surround yourself with to understand what you're trying to build and what you're trying to do is extremely important, and not getting caught up in the, your friends that may have the 9-to-5 jobs that, have the steady income and can afford to go out on all the weekend nights and live it up, when you got to be, kind of working away and trying to fight for every dollar that you can get, So
Sure.
I think surrounding yourself with the right minded people is extremely important. Yeah.
Definitely. Can you give me a story from your childhood that you think really helped shape you and your desire to go and be an entrepreneur yourself?
Oh man.
I'm sure there's many, but if there's one that stands out in your mind that says, "Hey, I'm so glad my dad went through this because I learned so much from him from this experience."
I think it was, more of seeing him come home when they first had launched the company, of not coming home till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then kind of waking up early and going right back at it, and kind of putting in those long hours and early mornings.
Sure.
Of what it takes, and then I kind of, I have two brothers, and we would always, when we were younger, if we had a snow day, we would be out there going door to door trying to, hey, $20, we'll shove your driveway, and
Hell yeah.
just having those little things. I never had really thought that would, lead to me starting my own business, but I think a lot of it is, trying to find something you have a passion for and pursuing it.
Sure. Now, was your father or someone or your mother as well? Are they people that said, "Hey, go up to them and ask them for $20 and they say, "No, go earn it"? Is that what inspired you to do the door to door and shovel snow and rake leaves and whatever it took? Or how did they inspire you to work that hard? I guess that's the bottom line of the question.
It was more of, just a willingness to put money in my own pocket, really, because it wasn't, I've definitely been extremely fortunate to have the upbringing that I've had, and I think all my siblings would say the same thing, but a lot of it is just, that having that grit to, go out there and do it yourself, because there's a lot of satisfaction in the end goal of hard work, and just, getting rewarded for putting in the time and the hours is, what makes it worth it, rather than, sitting there asking for it.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you didn't have to, I guess you didn't need the money, but you wanted the money. And if you wanted to get things or wanted to go out or want to do things on your own, you decided just to go out and get it done. And that
yeah, exactly.
Your family was able to give it to you, but you found the satisfaction and get out there and earn it yourself and make the money and then spend the money that you worked hard for, which is fantastic. And I think that's one of the biggest things missing right now. And I think this whole millennial group and even the kids that are in high school now is their hands are out more than they're out there working, and it's a little scary that a whole generation of those people are going to be not as much willing to put the hard work in and time and effort is to build a company, but looking for the easy out or the easy answers, the easy money. So I'm glad to hear that you grew up in a household that taught you that importance and that value of working hard and earning not necessarily a paycheck, but earning your own keep, so to speak, by doing hard work, which is fantastic. So tell me,
absolutely.
Your business has been around for how many years?
Still pretty young. We've only been around for about 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Okay. So in the past 2.5 years, talk about a low point in which maybe you went to your father for advice. And if you can share this, what that advice was, and then talk about a high point, because obviously the high points will keep you going and get you through the low points when they come. Is there a low point or a high point you could share with us?
Low point, I think, is always the early financials of the company. Okay. It takes a lot to to get a company up and off the ground, capital wise, and
sure.
It's you think it would cost so much, and then it costs probably double that. So just sometimes hitting those maybe a month or two of really low sales, and having to pivot what you're doing to get those back up to keep moving forward. But yeah, definitely times of just looking at the bank account and seeing how how much longer can you last until you're pretty much done, and kind of having to pick yourself back up and being like, okay, I got to do this, and this to survive and get it back to a point of moving forward. Yeah, it's definitely not easy, because you're trying to win over the customer base, and it's all relationship market that I'm in, and constantly trying to prove to people why they should buy my product over the next, and preaching about what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to build, and definitely the high points of the business have been all people coming back to me 2.5 years later with the same exact product and that they bought when I first launched, and telling me how much they love it, and that those are kind of the things that keep me going and make me the happiest. I don't really care about the money. I'm more in it to build a successful brand that I can live off of and wake up every day doing what I love. So to have people come back and tell me every time they see me if I'm doing a certain show or whatnot, to come back and show me the product of how it's worn over the past couple of years, or say, hey, I've had this, I want to get something else now, and that's the best part. So
well, definitely. Well, that's excellent. Congratulations on that feedback, because I know, I think as every inventor or entrepreneur or business owner, they thrive on that feedback, and that's what keeps you going. And to go back to your low point, I think that's a very common low point for a lot of people, especially in the first 3 to 5 years when, you put all this money to get started, and then it's just as soon as possible you want the business to be self-sufficient, and then you want to be able to pay your own bills along with the business's bills. And I think it's a point that's not talked about at all on shows like Shark Tank or shows like The Profit, is what do you do in those low points? Who do you turn to? Some people turn to family and friends for financials, says, hey, you know what? I need $5,000 a month, for example, to survive. And the company gave me $3,000. So where do I get the $2,000 from? And for some people, like I said, they have the family and friends they can turn to. Some people don't have anybody they can turn to. And then what do you do? And then you're kind of upside down for a month until hopefully the next month is better. So what if the next month isn't better? Then what do you do? So I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit. Just, when you had some of those down points, were you able to do a show? Were you able to do an event that kind of helped stimulate some more revenue? Was family able to help you out? Because I think that's a real common issue that a lot of viewers and listeners have. And you hate asking for money. I mean, I know there's been plenty of times in our 3 years that I've gone to my family and said, hey, I hate to bother you. I know you don't want to hear from me to ask you for money, but I know next month's going to be so much better. Could you help me out with a little bit here, and I'll be happy to give it back to you next month. But again, we hate asking, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. What have you found as a good strategy, or have you been able to get loans? I know loans are tough in banks because you're considered risky. Go ahead.
That's the biggest thing is getting a loan is almost impossible from a bank for a startup or a small business starter in the first couple of years, because most of the time you're in the red the first three or so years, and a bank doesn't ever want to see that, and then you're not going to get approved, and so getting capital that way is pretty difficult. And then you have the option of going to an investment firm, and then you have to give up equity. And I don't believe in giving up the equity for the hard work just for the money. I think there's other ways of getting the money,
right.
But I think it's different for every industry. I think the tech industry in general is pretty driven by that, where grow as fast as you can, because you have to get the product in front of the customer as soon as possible, or else someone could come along and do the exact same idea. While I'm more trying to build a established brand where something that's going to last forever, and people are going to come back and constantly buy, because it's quality, and you're buying something that's going to last a lifetime. So I think going to an investment firm where you're going to be giving up equity to the company for an exchange of money, it's important for some industries, but I personally don't like it, because I don't like giving up equity to the company for hard work where you can find the money elsewhere, most likely. But yeah, I've been fortunate to be able to have a couple family and friends that got me off the ground, and when you hit those low points, it's more about finding doing the shows, doing like a local show where you just go set up a table and with other people that are doing it, making various stuff and trying to get revenue that way, and just constantly putting yourself out there to win over new customers and get that revenue.
I think it's a very key point. I'm going to repeat it because I think it's very important. Constantly putting yourself out there. And if I hear one thing that's consistent with a lot of entrepreneurs is, well, that's just not me, or I'm just not that kind of person. Have you always been the kind of person that just was outspoken? Were you in student body in high school or college? Were you always that outspoken person, or has this been really a big shift for you in order to do the shows and to stop people and talk to people? I know when I did the shows at the mall for over the holidays to work in a kiosk, that's definitely outside my comfort zone, because I know when I shop, I don't like to be bothered by people in the kiosk. But now I was that guy having to bother people. So I want to be tasteful and tactful, but at the same time, no one's there to see me. So if I want them to stop and consider my product, I have to stop them, introduce them. I have about 15 to 30 seconds to make an impression, and hopefully close them within a minute or two because they're on to something else. What have you done that's been outside your comfort zone?
I did a kiosk at the mall this past holiday season as well, actually.
So you know my pain.
Outside my comfort zone.
It's a whole new world, isn't it, working a kiosk?
Oh, it is. Yeah,
it's brutal.
It was a lot of long hours, that's for sure. But yeah, that was pretty outside my comfort zone. Just sitting there, and having people constantly pass you by, and then sometimes you'll get people to stop and be interested, and then it's it was a different experience, that's for sure. And then a lot of my stuff has been, a lot of my wholesale accounts have just been a lot of cold calling. I think I'm not going to say a lot of people are afraid to do it, but a lot of people are timid of it because it's uncomfortable sometimes to pick up a phone and call a retailer or call them a store and tell them your store, or even walk into a store blindly and try to get a sale that way by showing samples. But that's honestly how I found most of my success, and how found most of these relations with different stores, is just kind of putting myself out there and doing these cold calling types of things, because no one's looking for you. You have to go and find them. So
exactly right. Well, it's incredible. You're a young man that you're out there and have the drive and the endurance and the persistence is impressive. And that's why when I met you in Chicago, I said, I definitely have to have this guy on the show, because he's going through exactly what I've gone through, but I'm also have 20 years of corporate experience under me. And therefore, I decided I don't want to work for someone else because I've been through that. And what you're doing right now is exactly what I just did in the last 3 years. Doing the trade shows, talking to people that are walking by, that are retail owners, doing the kiosk, doing the Southern Christmas show or the Christmas show in your area, gift shows, and just talking, get out there. And it's not easy. But at the same time, what your father built, what you saw your father build, was a great role model for you. So you kind of knew before you got into it what it took. I don't know how involved were you in watching him at, during the holidays, or watching him at shows? Did he bring you at all along to some of those shows and allow you to work with him? Did you get experience that way, so you kind of knew what to expect, or this is all totally different industry, therefore nothing the same?
Nothing even close to the same, though. It was just more of, instilled in me from a young age, and seeing him and where they've grown the business, to be able to see it from where they started it in a garage to where they are now, to close to 100 employees, is, it's impressive, and it shows, how rewarding hard work can be. And I think it was more just, character trait that was instilled in me at a young age.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's excellent. I know I bring my kids to the shows just so they can experience it. I'm not sure I'm going to scare them away, or I want them to understand the hard work that Dad puts in each and every day. But it's great that he was that mentor for you growing up, and still is to this day. And I'm sure he's still someone you can go to and ask questions. And it's nice to have a mentor that's related, which is fantastic. So help us understand, Connor, a little bit more about what Brooks & Hite offers. We've talked about your story. We've talked about the ups and downs. We've talked about what it takes to bring a product to market. just to make sure the viewers clearly understand, and the listeners, all the different types of products you brought to market. Which one was your first one, and how has the brand kind of expanded?
Yeah, so my two main products that sell the best are wallets and belts, and I offer kind of a higher end. I'm a higher end luxury brand. I make everything myself, and I never outsource any of my manufacturing. I think you lose a lot of sense of the story behind the brand when you do that, and a lot of corners are skipped, and the product just doesn't have the same appeal to a consumer when you're outsourcing to China or wherever it is, rather than hey, this guy's sitting here in his shop making this stuff himself. This is pretty impressive and cool. And then just hearing the story behind it is kind of what helps me, win over customers. So the belts and the wallets are my main product line. Then I have toiletry kits, some valet trays, which are kind of like catch-all trays. You throw your keys and your wallets in, so you're not just tossing them on the countertop.
Okay.
Some little smaller accessories, and then I am about to launch a women's line here in March, hopefully, for a Kickstarter campaign to kind of get the brand outside of Cincinnati, and just kind of expand it more. So that'll include a purse, a wristlet, a couple different wallet designs, and then I'll eventually start doing some more coat style purses and expanding the men's line as well. So yeah, those are my my main products right there.
Excellent. And if listeners and viewers want to go to your website, it's brooksandhyde.com. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to spell it for the audience because Brooks can be spelled a couple different ways. So it's BROOKESAND, then the word Hyde, HYDE.com.
Correct.
Excellent. And it's impressive that you've been able to expand the brand to so many different products. Obviously, starting out with wallets and belts, got some traction with that. Then add the toiletry kits, the catch-all trays, and now you're doing a women's line, which is totally outside your realm, but it's the same type of material. You're still dealing with leather. You're still dealing with items that are very closely tied to the men's style as well. How are you making the women's line different? Is it based on the different look or different type of leather, or how are you?
A lot of it will be, I kind of I take inspiration from a lot of the larger brands and kind of what's trending in the market.
Okay.
And then I kind of try to design the product to fit the niche of my brand, and kind of make it unique from what's already out there in the market. So a lot of it's looking at what the larger brands are doing that everyone's carrying, and then kind of, looking at what's going to be the new trend, what's selling right now, what's going to be selling next season, and then kind of trying to really, come up with a design and a product that will fit that upcoming season, and will kind of be a hot seller for the women's line. So it's a completely different market for me. I've never done women's accessories before, but it's also it's new and it's interesting. So it'll be a challenge, but the initial product line is pretty it's gotten a lot of good feedback so far. So
good. Well, it's exciting. I think it's just another risk you take as an entrepreneur. You could stick with wallets and belts and that's it. But then the retail stores say, hey, Connor, what do you have that's new? Like, what do you mean what's new? I have wallets and belts. Like, no, we need something new. See, I think everyone has to realize that's listening and watching that you have to keep innovating. You have to keep bringing additional products to the brand. Otherwise, you get stale and people just move on to other brands that are more innovative. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I completely agree. I also think that, I don't like to stretch myself too far, because then I like to, before I move into a new product, I like to get really good at what I'm doing products that I already carry, and then I will start to release new ones because I don't want to, jump into a new product or a new, say like a bag line or something before I've already mastered, making belts or making wallets. So I think that's important to me because if people are spending good money to buy my product, I want to make sure that they're getting the highest quality product that they can possibly get.
Good for you. That's great to hear. Because everyone's looking for, I think there's a big push for cheap and Walmart prices and Amazon prices and get as cheap as you can. I'm all about building value. I'm all about building the best quality product I can build. And it's great to hear that, that your business and your brand, Brooks and Hyde, exactly the same way. And I don't think everyone has to be cheap. I don't think everybody has to be, fight over who has the cheapest price of that same item. I think we really need to get back to building quality products, standing behind the price because of the workmanship, the craftsmanship, because of the quality, because of we stand behind the product. It's very important. I mean, there's car brands that do it, but unfortunately, a lot of the typical men's clothing items, everyone's looking for big deals around Christmas or big deals around Father's Day, and they wait and shop just when it's on sale. And I think a great brand doesn't need a sale. A great brand sells to the price that you ask for it because of the quality that you created that product out of. So it sounds like
Exactly.
you're well on that track as well.
Exactly. I completely agree.
Well, that's excellent. Well, Connor, how else can people find you? Obviously, we have your website, brooksandhyde.com. Are you on Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at Brooks and Hyde.
So all the handles are Brooks and Hyde.
BROOKSANDHYDE. Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, Connor, it's great having you on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time. You're from my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio, so it's a great chance to give a shout out to a fellow Cincinnatian. Obviously, we struggle sometimes in our football and in our basketball, but hey, as long as we can create some great companies, Cincinnati's not all that bad.
Yeah, there we go.
Every time I tell someone I'm from Cincinnati, like, oh, the Bungles. I'm like, yeah, the Bengals, they've struggled. They've had their ups and downs, and right now it's kind of a downtime with Marvin Lewis and the team, but business is strong in Cincinnati, P&G, GE, so there's a lot of great companies that come from the Cincinnati area, and Brooks & Hyde's that next great company. So I appreciate you being on the show. Anything else you want to add before we end the interview?
I don't think so. I think that we covered a lot of it. I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad to hear it, Connor. Again, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you got a lot going on, trying to expand your brand. Got a new line coming out in March, which is literally 2 weeks away. So I know it's very stressful and new things are launching and dealing with retailers and filling orders. So you juggle a lot, and I wish you the very, very best. And I appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. Appreciate
My pleasure. And you are listening to the Perky Collar Radio Show right here on WDRB Media, and we'll be right back after the break.